Today there is a challenge. Today there is a challenge. You see, we are not allowing outsiders, alien people in our house today. Just think what logistics professionals are facing. They are not allowed to cross state borders. Just to give you an example, just to give you a small example, the other day, a container carrying alcohol was not allowed to enter a particular state, assuming that this is for consumption. They did not realize that this alcohol is meant for manufacturing of sanitizers. A tanker full of coconut oil was not allowed to enter, which was coming from Kerala. Now imagine if this happens within the country, what is happening across the globe? What are the challenges that are faced by logistics professionals? So how important global logistics should be in terms of an export and import process? What is the supply chain that goes behind? How people are involved in making one particular product? We are talking of an automobile, we are talking of a car. You have to understand the number of organizations who are involved in making a particular car. I'm not going to get into details, but somebody is making the engine, somebody is making the chassis, somebody is making the gearbox, somebody is making the upholstery, somebody is making the tire, etc., etc., etc. So there are suppliers. There are suppliers and there are buyers. And there is a chain. And there is a chain which is connecting all these partners to form a supply chain. And when we are talking of a supply chain, when we are talking of a buyer, when we are talking of a seller, obviously we are talking of transaction, we are talking of trade. So whenever we are talking of a transaction or trade, there has to be a movement of certain kind of commodities or products or goods. This movement is logistics. This movement or non-movement through inventory management or warehousing is logistics. And today we are going to focus on global logistics. There's a tendency of companies to go offshore, to extend their business overseas, and that is making the supply chain even more and more complicated. There are companies who work in multiple nations. They operate out of multiple nations. And that is the reason they should have a very, very robust, a strong and an efficient logistics system. So coming back, and also we have to understand the kind of risks involved. Whenever you are working with a channel partner across the border, whenever you are working with somebody, with a partner who is not within the boundary of your country, there are several risks involved in doing business. We will also discuss what are these kinds of risks involved and how we should make ourselves strong in order to mitigate these risks. So now I will quickly go to our presentation. Before that, as I said, this entire area of logistics, this particular topic of logistics and its significance to export and import process will be divided into 3 classes. Today, as I said, we'll discuss the introduction, the concept. In the subsequent classes, we are going to discuss the transportation process. 2 of the most important functions in logistics is transportation and warehousing. Most significant function, most important role, transportation and warehousing. We are going to discuss what role transportation, what are the various features of transportation, warehousing, how do sourcing happens, how logistics services are outsourced, how third-party logistics and how fourth-party logistics play a role. And when you're talking of export and import, you're obviously talking of movement of goods between 2 countries. And when they move between 2 countries, am I audible to everybody? Am I audible to everybody, please? Somebody is saying that I'm not audible. Can you all hear? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gaurang. Thank you, Ms. Padmaja. Thank you. Okay, I'll carry on. So we will discuss. So when we have an export-import process, goods are moving from one country to the other. Either they are moving by rail, by road, by sea. Primarily, when we are talking of India, most of our import and export happens either by sea or by air. So one most important function is customs clearance. We will also discuss customs clearance in one of the sessions. I will switch off my video for a while. Let me tell you, uh, I will give this presentation. I will continue with the presentation till about, this session is from 2 to 4. So around 3:30, I will stop my presentation, and I will allow you to, during the presentation, I would expect you to make notes of whatever is being discussed. But before that, let me also remind you, there would be few topics which probably would have been discussed in few other classes on other topics, doesn't matter. Few of the slides, few of the presentation may have extensive texts. Very difficult in this short time to make a note of all the text. Doesn't matter. You listen to me carefully. When I'm in a slide which has a lot of text, listen to me. I will tell you which are the areas which are very important. We cannot be a master in global logistics in 6 hours, I repeat. I'll be happy if you can get a good macro view of global logistics in this 6 hours. I'll be very happy. So make a note of your inquiry, make a note where clarifications are required. Then I'll leave the session open for the last half an hour, where you can raise your hand, you can ask questions, and even if your question is not answered within the stipulated time, please hand over your queries to Mr. Prasad, and I will come back to you either through mail, WhatsApp, or whatever. It doesn't matter. But I'm sure we will have enough time during this session to answer each other's inquiry. I hope that's fine with everybody. So while I fetch my presentation from my system, I will put my video off just for a few seconds, for a minute maybe, and I will come back with the presentation. Thank you for your patience. Okay. Can everybody see the screen? I hope everybody can see the screen. Mr. Prasad, can you take a feedback from everybody and tell me, because I cannot see the messages. Is my screen visible to everybody? Hello? 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 Is my screen visible and am I audible? Please, can somebody please reply? Can somebody unmute and reply, please? Was my screen visible when I had this screen in front of you? Was it visible to all of you?
Hello?
Was my screen visible to all of you?
No, sir. Actually, can you slide to next slide?
Yeah, but initially was the screen visible to you?
No, sir.
No, not now. I'm saying just a moment back. Was my screen visible to you?
Just close it and again open, sir.
Okay. Once it is visible, just call me and confirm, okay?
Okay, okay. Yeah,
Okay,
now
so
it is okay, sir.
yeah, so this is the first screen, okay? This is the topic that I have, global logistics and supply chain. Uh, this is basically the agenda for all the 6 days, and which I have already explained.
దీనికి సపోర్ట్ అంటే ఏమీ లేదండి జనర ఫోన్ కాల్స్ కూడా వాళ్ళేమి రెస్పాండ్ అవుతుంది నాకు నేను ట్రై చేసిన
So
కానీ
the,
బ్యాక్ ఏంటంటే యూట్యూబ్ లో కానీ మనం గూగుల్ సెర్చ్ చేసుకొని చేసుకొని చేయాల్సింది రిజిస్టర్ చేయాల్సింది
so the agenda for the
చాలా
first,
బాగా చేసేస్తా
so the agenda for the first 6 days is introduction to global logistics, documentation and sequence, third party.
లైవ్ లో
Please mute yourself.
ఈ డెస్క్టాప్ కూడా మీరు చూపించేస్తున్నాం
Please mute yourself, please. A third party, fourth party logistics, multimodal transport system, warehouse management and customs procedure for logistics. So this is logistics. This is what logistics is all about, as you can see in this particular screen. We are talking of shipping, we are talking of warehousing, distribution center, as sophisticated as Amazon delivery, or even a simple porter, trucking, packaging, packing using a barcode technology. So all this comprise of logistics. Can you identify what the ship is? What is the ship? The ship is Titanic, okay? And we have all seen Titanic, the movie. You'll be surprised to know, okay, here we are talking of business logistics. So when we talk of Titanic, we speak of both business logistics as well as general logistics, because it primarily moved people from UK to USA. And you'll be surprised to know, way back in 1914, there was a family from Guntur. There was a family from Guntur. They were all Englishmen. They were a part of this Titanic ship, which ultimately sank, and most of us would have seen this movie. Okay, so we go to the next slide. As I said, do not try to copy, do not try to read everything, do not try to make a note of everything that is mentioned in a slide. I'm only going to cover the most important points over here. So it's basically planning, implementing and controlling. It starts with planning. What you plan, you implement, and then once you've implemented, you should see that the process is controlled based on the parameters. It has both a forward and a reverse flow. Now, when you say a forward flow, when a product is made, it is made out of raw materials. So the product is made and it is on a forward logistics. So somebody who's making a raw material would send it to a manufacturer. Manufacturer would send the finished goods to the consumer. So it moves from left to right. So that's forward logistics in simple terms. What happens in reverse logistics? What happens in the reverse direction? There is a movement on the reverse direction. What moves from customer backwards? Information moves, money and fund moves. When I say money, payment against the fund. And today we have seen in reverse logistics, particularly the uh, e-commerce company has made reverse logistics very, very popular, because you also can reject or return items which are not required by you. So it is from the point of origin to the point of destination, as well as from point of destination to the point of origin when it comes to reverse logistics. And when we talk of global logistics, all that is seen in the first 3 points, it happens between different countries. So it is not restricted to local, regional, or within the state of a country. It goes overseas. So we will have number of definitions of logistics. So what are the activities? It is very important. This slide is very, very important. What are the activities that happen in logistics? You design a network. When you say network, you can talk of facilities, manufacturing units, distribution centers, warehouses, R&D centers, packaging center, packing centers, logistics centers. These are the networks. Materials that you buy, either raw materials, components, or finished goods, that needs to be managed to ensure that the demand and the supply is an equilibrium. There is information which is very important that should flow within the system. Transportation, distribution, inventory management. Inventory management happens where it happens within a warehouse. So inventory, when we talk of inventory management, we are talking of managing the stock, and we are talking of warehouse. Warehousing is all about maintaining the infrastructure and the processes within the warehouses. Then you have packing and packaging. These are two different things. When we say packing and packaging, we're thinking of the type of packing materials being used, the process of packing, whether it's manual or automated, the kind of labeling that we use in a packaging matter, what are the regulations, what are the legal implications of packaging, all that forms under packing and packaging. Procurement, purchase, sourcing, they go hand in hand. It is very important to identify the vendor that we are going to work with. It is very important. Sourcing means the source, the origin. Who's going to supply me the raw material? Who's going to supply the finished goods to me? Who's going to supply the labor? Who's going to supply the distribution? Who's going to be my dealer? I have to identify the source. Accordingly, my procurement and purchase is going to happen. And the last part is what I have just discussed in the previous slide, is all about reverse logistics. When you say reverse logistics, it goes from customer, forward logistics from supplier to customer, and reverse logistics from customer back to the supplier. Why you are sending shipments back to customer? You need to repair, you need to recycle, you need to refill. When you have a soft drink from a glass bottle, what happens to the glass bottle? It goes back to the bottling plant. That is reverse logistics. You have a Coca-Cola bottling plant right at Nizamabad. Sorry, I'm very sorry, at Nizampet. Those who have visited would have seen how glass bottles are reused, refilled, relabeled, and again sent back to the retailers for selling. Then you have returns for items which are damaged, etc. So these are all part of the reverse logistics process. So these are the activities which comprise the entire gamut of logistics. So as Peter Drucker said way back in 1962, that logistics is a dark continent. What is a dark continent? A dark continent is a place where a lot of things are still to be discovered. At one point of time, Asia in the 15th, 16th century, Africa, these places were called dark continents. So explorers from the European countries came and they identified, they discovered the Asian countries. There were explorers. So logistics is also a dark continent because there are a lot of new things. As I said right at the beginning, that logistics as a sector, as an industry, as a function is evolving every day. That is the reason it is called a dark continent, because it's a promises strategic use of logistics can really improve your business. Think of the e-commerce organizations. As I said, I will not follow the slides word by word. I will also use my own descriptions. Logistics, there are three stages of planning. One is a strategic planning, then there are tactical planning, and there is an operational planning. Strategic planning is done right at the top by the chairman, by the promoters, by the directors of the company. These strategies are long. These plans are for a long-term period, for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And what are the strategies? On what areas? The most important areas like financial areas. Where would the fund come from? Where would I set up my plant? Where would I set up my warehouses? What would be my competitive strategy? So these are the kind of decisions taken. Logistics earlier used to be an operational strategy. That means it was considered to be at the third tier, which can be taken on a daily basis, not anymore. Logistics has become so important at the global scenario. Now think of Amazon, think of Walmart, the companies who are on the digital platform, they are standing on two pillars. What are these two pillars? One is technology and the other one is logistics. So when you book your shipment from Flipkart or Big Basket or Swiggy or Amazon, your expectation is that you have a good technology where you can select your product in your phone. You can do a quick transaction. You should have number of options which should be visible to you. You can do a quick payment and book the order. That's the technology part. Once you have done it, what is your next expectation? Your expectation is that that particular product should reach you ASAP, as fast as possible. And what is going to enable that? Logistics. So these are two platforms. So earlier, now see a company where logistics is a pillar to the company, they cannot compromise. So it has to be a strategic decision. So for e-commerce companies and for other companies today, automobiles and etc., logistics has become a strategic tool to give you competitive advantage. So more on logistics, efficient, effective forward and reverse flow, which we have already discussed. It is a part of the supply chain management. Very important, the first point. It is a part of the supply chain management. I have already briefly explained you, and I'm going to discuss a little more on supply chain, a little more, and I come back that why logistics is a part of supply chain management. It's because, as I said, when you're working with, think of an automobile, which is made up of different components and different parts made by different organizations. Think of global companies like Ford, like Volkswagen, for Mercedes, Audi, etc. Their suppliers. Think of Dell, think of Hewlett Packard, think of IBM, who are making computers, laptops, etc. Their suppliers are spread all over the world. So in order to create a good network with these suppliers, a strong logistics network is extremely essential. So logistics as a function basically connects these channel partners with each other. So logistics obviously become a part of the supply chain process. As I said, we are talking of business logistics. We are not talking of logistics. Even this RTC buses, Uber, Ola, they are all providing us with logistics services, by the way. But these are the general logistics. They are moving people. We are not here to discuss general logistics. We are talking of business logistics and how this business logistics is going to be a facilitator to the export and import process. You can have a look at this particular slide, which tells you basically how this distribution happened, which I said right from, it's all about movement. Logistics is all about movement, and also in between movement, there is something else. As I said, two very, very important wings of logistics. One is transportation and the other one is warehousing. So not everything moves. You need to store as well. You have to store the raw materials. It is quite similar to what happens to our kitchen. We call our mothers as mom, M-O-M. I call them master of management. All moms in the world are M-O-M, master of management. They do the same thing at a smaller scale. They also do planning, they also do forecasting, they also produce, they keep a stock, they keep a safety stock, they took a labeling, they do everything that is done by a corporate or a manufacturer at a larger scale. So don't underestimate the function and importance of what our moms do at our respective homes. So this is what happens. This is the flow from raw material right up to the market, right up to our doorstep. And we often ignore participants, the importance of this logistics, importance of logistics function, the importance of a strong supply chain. Today we realize when the sanitizers, when the medicines, when the grains, when the wheat, when the masks, when they are not reaching to us on time, today we realize how important supply chain is to our day-to-day life. And to make a supply chain strong, you need a strong logistics system. Every company should have a strong logistics system. I will quickly move to a few of the slides. Okay, this particular presentation was made by connecting presentations from various individual presentations. That you see the look of the slides would be a little different, so it doesn't matter. So I will not wait at any particular slide. So what is the goal? Business integration, operations, inbound logistics, outbound logistics. So what is the sequence of the global logistics process? Again, the sequence remains the same. You have to see what a local supplier does or local manufacturing does in Hyderabad or in Mumbai or Pune. The same thing, the same function is carried out by a global supplier. It starts from supplying to customer. In global supply chain, it makes it more complicated because we are working with different countries, having different export input processes, having different logistics processes, different culture, different skills, different labor, different cost, different exchange value, etc. So that it makes. Otherwise, the fundamental, the basic process remains the same. From the, if you see on the right hand side, what the graph says, the inventory from the retailer to customer, thus the cycle is faster. The replenishment, the stock out is faster. So what you see today with a retailer, you go after 2 hours, you won't see the milk there, you won't see the bread there. But from a supplier to manufacturer, yes, the graph is longer. The inventory, which is in bulk, it takes some time for the inventory to get exhausted. That's all. Otherwise, the process remains the same. Supplier, when we say supplier, we are talking of raw material supplier who are making components. So raw materials are converted into components, components converted into assemblies, assemblies make a finished good, which is sent to the distribution process. Different companies have different distribution processes. Somebody would have a distributor, a wholesaler, a retailer, and a customer. A company like Dell, who connects with the customer directly. They have a direct distribution process. Think of Patanjali. They have multi-layer distribution process. They have national distributor, they have regional distributor, they have own retail, they have outsourced retail, etc. So it depends upon a company, the kind of product you are selling. But fundamentally, the process remains the same. What do we need to achieve global logistics excellence? Cost management. Cost is important. For your information, India and China are tipped to be the next most developing, the economic superpower, as they say. But for some reason, China or there are few other nations like South Korea, they are going faster than us. The only reason is we have a huge market. You see every day, either it is Bill Gates or Tim Cook or everybody, they say that India is a huge market. It's a very potential market, but why can't we reach that stage? Because our operating cost is very high. And when we say cost, mind you, only the logistic costs contribute to 10 to 12% of the cost. So a product which is I am selling at 100 rupees, I have to spend 10 to 12 rupees in India only for logistics cost. When I say logistics cost, it's transportation, packaging, inventory, warehousing, labor, loading, unloading. All these are eating up my 10 to 12% cost. Whereas in developed countries like the Germany, like the Japan, like Singapore, US, France, etc., their logistics costs contribute to only 5 to 6%. See the gap, 6% advantage they have. So the automation is important, visibility is important. Today you book a shipment, you want to know where the shipment is, when it is going to get delivered to you, where is the status of the shipment at every point of time. You need to have a very strong technology backup to have a end-to-end visibility. You should have good integration relationship with your supplier. You will be able to comply. There are regulatory compliances set up by the government, respective government of every country, and you have to abide by that. Today, government are very, very stringent about a green supply chain, green logistics, non-polluted process of transportation. You have to abide by that. Dynamic routing. How should a shipment reach from Mumbai to US? How it should be routed? Even locally also, if a truck is moving from Hyderabad to Mumbai, what should be the effective routing to make it faster and economical as well? So international and domestic workflow should be properly integrated. Platform planning with all your channel partners and suppliers. It should be on the same platform. You should have the same vision. You should be on the same platform. Your ideas, processes, procedures, vision, mission, everything should be on the same platform. You should, as far as that particular product is concerned. And financial supply chain management. For your information, today supply chain has something which is called financial supply chain. You have to understand, as I said, you're spending 10 to 12% of your revenue only on logistics operations. You need to know how to cut this cost, and to do that, you need to have an idea how to budget, how to negotiate, how to procure, what should be the cost, what material is available more economically at which part of the world. You should know all that. That comes under financial supply chain management. I've already discussed what supply chain management, and I do not want to get extended. So supply chain is nothing but, we are talking of supply and a chain. So think of Maruti. Think Maruti is making cars. They're making vehicles. What does a vehicle need? For example, I have an Alto. The Alto has an MRF tire. So MRF is a supplier to Maruti. So MRF is a seller and Maruti is a buyer. Now MRF is also a buyer. He must have brought that rubber from somebody, right? So if you see the entire supply chain, so MRF would have bought the rubber from somebody. So there is a rubber manufacturer. In order to make that rubber, that manufacturer must have bought some chemical from somebody. So the chain goes on. And when Maruti produces a car, what does it do with the car? It could be Alto, it can be Dzire, it can be whatever. There are various models, Dzire. So what does Baleno, what does Maruti do? Maruti would sell it to the end customer, user, but through a channel, a distribution channel. Now think of companies, multinational companies who work in large scale, manufacturers who work in large scale. See the kind of partners, see the kind of suppliers they're working with. And I do not want to repeat this once again. In global supply chain, we are talking of procuring, working with partners all over the world. And in order to do that, every company should be connected to the other with a very, very efficient logistics system. This is how it evolved. It was fragmented. In the 60s, it was fragmented. People only spoke of only forecasting or material handling. These were disintegrated. And then as we moved forward to 90s, 80s, 2000, and soon 2010, we have taken a holistic picture. In the 2000, actually, supply chain is not a very, very old concept. It all started somewhere, of course, Japan was the one who ultimately during the Second World War realized that they need to work with suppliers and vendors, because after World War II, their economy was completely devastated, was destroyed almost. So, but supply chain as a concept was introduced in United States of America, USA, in the 90s. So in the 20th century, basically. And then materials management, warehousing, physical distribution, they all form the part of logistics. And logistics, again, transformed into a supply chain process, because people understood that in order to work with different suppliers and different channel partners, there has to be integration of technology, sales, strategic planning, finance, etc. So we have moved forward. So this is basically a graphical explanation of what we have discussed in the previous slide. So it's basically, it moved from product development to procurement, movement of materials between facilities, manufacturing of the product, distribution. This entire process of a company. So every company has their own supply chain, their individual supply chain. You think of Procter and Gamble, you think of Maruti, you think of Patanjali, you talk of ITC, you talk of Samsung, you talk of Apple, you speak of any company. Manufacturing or services, they have their own supply chain, and they work with people, they work with their partners, they work with their suppliers who have they have their own supply chain, plus they have a very strong logistic system in terms of transportation, movement, warehousing, stocking, packaging, palletizing, etc. Companies are going global. Why we are going global? Why companies are going global? There are basically three reasons why companies go global. First of all, let us understand what is the difference between international and global. We frequently use these two words as if they are same, and they are not. International and global. When you say international, nation is a country, international between two countries. Inter means between, so between two countries. So when transaction happens between two or some limited countries, we talk of international transaction. We talk of the company as being international. But when a company works throughout the globe, you think of companies like the Ford or the Apple or the Walmart. They probably are present in each and every country. So you think of a globe. You see a globe, a round globe, which has all the countries. So when they are present, so either when you are an international company, when you have international logistics, you are either buying a product, a material or a component from a country, or you're selling your product to that country. You are manufacturing in your country, you're selling to another country. You're selling in India, you're making in India, selling in Bangladesh and Nepal, international. You're making in India, think of Dr. Reddy's today. What Dr. Reddy's was 25 years back, what Dr. Reddy's is today is a global company. They work with not less than 25 to 30 companies. The distribution network is huge today. Think of Amazon, a truly global company, because their presence, their distribution, their procurement, it covers several countries all over the world. So either why companies are going global, why they are going outside their own country, obviously new market and new technology. Cost is very important. Labor, resources, fuel prices, all this cost, they're looking at a better cost. They're also looking at better working environment, a politically, socially stable country they would like to operate out of. So there are very reasons why companies go global. But when you go global, obviously you should be ready to have a very strong supply chain and a logistics network. So your distribution, global supply chain, distribution of goods and service becomes very important. And when you're talking of distribution, either shipments coming from your supplier or your shipment going from you to your customers. See the second point, as I said, some of the slides will have a lot of texts. Don't mind, don't go through it. I have highlighted a few points and I'll tell you what these are. Excuse me. So this flow of goods in global logistics, in global supply chain, in order to ensure a very efficient global supply chain, an efficient movement and flow of goods between supplier, manufacturer and the customer becomes very, very important. Dell, for example, IBM or Hewlett Packard, what do they make? They make computers. So what is a computer? Say a PC. What is a PC made up of? Various components. Okay, let us not discuss everything. There is a motherboard, there are chips, there is a chassis, etc. Where do they come from? All these come from primarily from China and Taiwan. What does Dell do? What does IBM do? They assemble. There's a supply chain process. There's a logistics process. These are called OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, in China, Hong Kong, Taiwan. These are made and shipped back to US for final assembly by Dell or HP, etc. And there are case studies on how Dell messed up its entire supply chain by shipping the lighter goods by air and shipping the heavier goods by sea. That's a different story, different case study altogether. Anybody wanting to learn can connect offline or separately. So you have to, these are the things when you are talking of global logistics, these are the areas which becomes very important. What is the mode of your transportation? What is the technology you are going to use? What is the exchange price? What are the payment risks? What are the trade regulations, responsibilities? What kind of inventory management? Inventory management is so important. You cannot have excess inventory, or you cannot have an inventory which is lesser than the demand. Either way, your business is going to suffer. So today we are talking of just-in-time inventory. Inventory which is required, which should be just enough for the demand. That's it, nothing more than that. So we are not going to discuss this. I've just, as I said, some of the slides have been taken from some presentations, which are a part of the international trade actually. So these are the main exports of India. These are the main imports. What are the main imports of India? These are the countries where India export. But as I said, we should never stick to this particular, because as I said, logistics supply chain is evolving every time. So when I say United States is probably a country where India exports the maximum, today it may be wrong. So China may be the country that India imports maximum. It may be wrong, because now India has a free trade agreement with Germany. So suddenly Germany will become a very, very popular potential country for India for imports and exports. These two examples, Ford and Walmart, just these two. See how complicated the supply chain, and in the process, how strong they need their global logistics to be. Just see, they just for a particular product, their transmissions, the distributors, the radiators, different parts of Ford are manufactured in at least 12 to 15 countries and or cities. You have England, you have France, you have Spain, you have Italy, you have Germany. There's so many places that we have. Same with Walmart. 70 countries, today it may be 80, or more than 1100 stores, today it may be 15,000 stores. 32 billion worth of inventory, today it may be much more than that. The variety of product ranges to 7,000, 8,000 varieties of product. And see the flow chart. So if you see the supply chain, what is connecting? There is a photograph of a truck in between. There is a photograph of a warehouse in between. So what is connecting the supply chain? What is connecting the global supply chain is the global logistics system of that particular company. In this case, we are talking of Walmart and Ford. So logistics adds a lot of value, or logistics adds a lot of value. Now, I can see that many of the participants are very senior executives, and in fact, some of them are directors of. So whatever I say may not be relevant for them. They may be a little basics for them, but still for the general participant as a whole. What do you mean by a value? We use this word every day and every almost day in and day out. Value. Value of a product is nothing by the utility that you get and the price you pay. So higher the price and the lesser the benefit, the value goes down. And just the reverse, if you are able to supply a product at lesser price, the value will automatically go. One way of increasing the value is to increase your productivity. As simple as that. Productivity is nothing but output. And logistics is an area where the product, there's a lot of opportunities of increasing the productivity. Just think of Amazon. Why do Amazon is very valuable to us? Their productivity is very high. The price we pay and the benefit and the utility get is very high. That is the reason today Amazon is a sought after company for many of us. And they have completely changed the way we transact, we buy. So you have the inbound logistics. Every company, there is a door coming inside and there is a door going outside. What is coming inside? Raw materials, components, etc. What is going out is a finished product. That's simple as that. The entire supply chain. MRF, they produce tire. So their inbound logistics will have different chemicals, different the rubber, raw rubber, the rims, the tubes, and etc. What is going out is a completely manufactured tire. And this tire is becoming an inbound logistics to Maruti, to Ford, to Volkswagen. So that's an inbound logistics. And what is going out as an outbound logistics is a car. I am deliberately skipping a few of the slides. So these are the one has to understand cost, duties, etc. are very important. Export regulations, the timing are very important. I would straight away go to the next slide. We are talking of global logistics. It's a set of management tools and techniques that enhance the firm's efficiency. And global logistics is the process, science, but it's an also art of managing the goods, the flow of goods, managing the flow of goods throughout the supply chain, which is spread all across the globe, which is spread across different countries. The components is order processing, inventory management. We have all this. Now, why do we study global logistics? Very important slide. Why do we study? We study because we have to understand the product, which enhances the marketing implications. You have to understand where the product needs to be manufactured, brought, where it's required. It enhances the utility. How much? What is the quantity that we should procure? The condition that the product should be delivered to a customer. It damages, it does not serve any purpose if the condition of the product being delivered to a customer is not as per the contract or the requirement of the customer. It does not serve any purpose. It has to be delivered on time. If it is not delivered on time, the inventory management suffers. The inventory management of stock suffers. Either we go stock out or we have excess inventory. It is a huge tool. Global logistics, efficient global logistics is a huge tool for promoting your product. Companies who can deliver on time, for example, Dell, they have a huge brand name in the entire globe as a manufacturer of computer hardwares. And the cost, I have said earlier, in global logistics, just think of local logistics. Think of the transportation cost between Hyderabad to Warangal, Hyderabad to Delhi, Hyderabad to Mumbai, Pune. Now think of the cost that you incur when you are a global player. You are working with 5, 6, 20, 25, 30, 40 countries, working with several thousands and lakhs of people. What is the logistics cost? As I said, successful developed countries have been able to manage at 5 to 6%. And India should be in a position to reach that. And then we'll be able to identify as us as a. So why global logistics is important to the industry? It generates demand. It provides utility. Operating cost is reduced. You can tap international clients. As I said, we want to go outside. When a company grows, if a company in Hyderabad grows, then it tries to go to the state of Telangana. When it goes in Telangana, he wants to go to the region. He wants to capture the entire southern India. When he's successful in southern India, he wants to go to the entire national market. So he goes to Gujarat, he goes to Bengal and Northeast and Delhi and North. So he becomes a national player. When he's a successful national player, His aim is to go overseas and reach out to the international client. And it allows you to have a rapid economic growth. So you have the company then has a global outlook. So you are not restricted to a local culture, a local product, local variety. You have access to the global logistics, sophisticated trade logistics, sophisticated mode of transportation, sophisticated mode of warehousing. What you see today, the distribution centers that we have, forget about India. When we are talking of Telangana or Hyderabad, the warehouses that are being set up in Telangana, in and around Hyderabad, they are already very, very sophisticated distribution centers and warehouses. In Mehboob you have Procter and Gamble warehouse. Okay, Procter and Gamble has set up their warehouse. It is extremely sophisticated warehouse. Okay, so you get access to, when you are a global player, you get access to the global trade logistics. That's the reason why global logistics also very, very important for the industry as a whole. So these companies, Peter Drucker said that there are a lot of opportunities. Logistics is a dark continent. There are a lot of opportunities. And these few companies, which are shown over here, they have identified and they have grown. Walmart in inventory management, Dell in online distribution, FedEx, they can deliver anywhere at any time. And Toyota, way back in the 1940s, they introduced the lean management process, and today they are the masters of just-in-time and lean operations. So they have identified a new process, new logistics opportunity, and they have enhanced the brand. Today, you will accept all these four are huge brand in their respective. Walmart in retail sector, Dell in computer hardware, Toyota as far automobile is concerned, and FedEx as a logistics and supply chain provider. I've told you the difference between international and global. Why is it important? Why India should become a global logistics provider? Because we want to, along with China, we want to identify ourselves as a global manufacturing hub. But it's pointless. Investors are complaining because your infrastructure is not in place. You are not capable of good transportation system within the country. You do not have good port infrastructure. And that's the reason Indian government has introduced what is called the Sagarmala project. I do not know whether anybody of you must have heard of Sagarmala project. We are developing all along the coast. You know, 2/3 of our country is covered by water on 3 sides. We are fortunate to have Bay of Bengal in one side, Indian Ocean, and the Arabian Sea on the other side. And all this, about 14 to 15 ports all along the coastline are being developed, because developed ports are an indication of a country which is looking for development and huge development. Without port development, without multimodal transportation development, you cannot become a global leader, because you will not have your trade logistics in place. So India has a high transactional cost, foreign investors, poor connection into hinterland. So the ports do not connect. There are manufacturers in Ludhiana, in Chandigarh, in Assam. And how can they connect with Mumbai, with Chennai, with Paradip, with Visakhapatnam, with Haldia, all these ports? How can they? Mumbai, and today you have these private players, the Kandla port and all the other ports that you have. How will they connect unless you have a very strong? Today, even we have gone one step ahead. We are not only dependent on local surface transportation, we are also using our inland waterways. We are blessed, our country is blessed with rivers, the Krishna, the Godavari, the Ganga, Yamuna. The only point is that they have not been utilized. The government of India has already started using the inland water transportation. The first shipment, you probably know, went from Haldia to Varanasi. PepsiCo had sent a consignment. So we have started using our local internal river waterways as well. So what is the significance of trade logistics, global trade logistics? We want to become, see, you have to understand, see the last point. I draw your attention, just to the last point, China has almost 70% of 65 to 70% of the large ports all over the world. And that's the reason they are not one step but several steps ahead of us in terms of being recognized as a global manufacturing hub. India has started doing it, and I'm quite optimistic in 10 years from now, uh, we will probably become the superpower in terms of a manufacturing hub, global manufacturing hub. And for that, we need to improve the global logistics process. We need to improve our transportation, our multimodal transportation system, our ports, our railway system, our containerization, our export import processes, etc. Well, we are talking of supply chain logistics in the modern area, but is it really modern? You'll be surprised to know it is not modern. It is not contemporary. It started in the 14th and the 15th century. All these people you see, most of you probably know Vasco da Gama, Christopher Columbus, Robert Clive. They all came from, now in the 14th and 15th century, India, the Southeastern Asian countries, Africa, they were dark continents. And people used to come, these were called explorers. Who are explorers? Who try to find, who try to discover new things. So what they identified is something called, as you can see, Columbus, Vasco da Gama, and Robert Clive. They traveled, and they traveled in a route which is called the Silk Route. And what is silk? We all know what is silk. One of the most precious and expensive and sought after commodity. They came for silk, they came for sandalwood, they came for ivory. So they came to explore. And the way they collected is a different matter altogether. Whether they did it ethically, legally is a different, is history altogether. But they came all the way, as you can see from that small map over there. They came all the way from European countries, from Holland, from the Dutch came from Holland, and they came to India, China, Java, etc. Today these countries are now Myanmar, and you have Indonesia, you have etc. Yeah. Malaysia, excuse me. So they travel this route. So it is nothing new. Today we are talking of supply chain process. We are talking of logistics process. You'll be surprised to know that way back in the 14th and 15th century, the Dutch people actually, how did they identify this route way back in the 14th and the 15th century? So they had a very strong logistics at that point of time. Dutch logistics excelled because their assets were designed specifically for trade. They manufactured, they had their infrastructure for trade. So it's not new. So export-import process, global logistics is not new. It was there since the 14th, 15th, and the 16th century. See the second one, much of history prior to Dutch, who are Dutch people who come from Holland or Netherlands. They are called the Dutch. The Dutch did their, what the Dutch invented was essentially supply chain visibility. And it's something which our new generation companies are trying to do. As I said earlier, it's not new. Japan identified the importance of global logistics way back in during the Second World War, when their economy was devastated. They realized the importance of working with multiple suppliers and vendors to boost their economy. We spoke about risk, a very important area of supply chain management. There are risks. Today we have a risk. There's a threat outside. The virus is a threat. Earlier, there were various viruses, the Nipah or the Ebola, etc. They were thefts. There was tsunami, which was a theft. A company financial condition can be a threat. A bad financial condition can be a threat. A labor problem can be a threat. But are you vulnerable? What is vulnerability? You have to be proactive. You have to make yourself prepared for the stress. If you're not prepared, those threats will be converted into risk. And what is that risk? Risk of losing business. We have seen what tsunami had done. Just forget about tsunami. Think of what happened in Mumbai and Chennai a few years back in terms of floods, how it affected the local transportation. And when these economic centers get affected, the entire global supply chain, the entire global logistics get affected. So it is important for everybody to be prepared for such risk and threats. So there are certain risks which are known to us, we can control. There are certain risks which are uncontrollable, we cannot control, it's uncertain. So which are unknown to us? Natural disasters, epidemics, terrorism, what we are seeing today, epidemics, it's an unknown threat, which is almost not controllable. We are trying to control. And which are controllable with us? A labor problem, skill deficiency problem, execution problem, supplier problem, it is still controllable. But still risks are there. And global logistics has to prepare themselves against all these risks. So how it affects? So this risk, there is a percentage. If you see what affects the supply chain, the global supply chain, or the global most is our global supply chain partners. We are working with so many partners. Somebody is manufacturing, for example, if anything happens to China, if I told you that Dell is dependent on OEM and their components made in China, so anything happens with the supplies in China, the entire Dell or IBM supply or manufacturing or distribution will be affected. And then followed by natural disaster, epidemics, etc. You have earthquakes, you have floods, you have so many things happening. So these are basically what kind of threats we have, and what is the percentage in terms of their importance and risks. So this is the risk management, what you need to do. These are the risk management, how you should manage the risk. Either you increase your capacity, you increase your responsiveness, you have to have procurement risk. So what do you need to do in order to mitigate the procurement risk? You should have number of suppliers with you. You have multiple suppliers with you. So these are the few of the risk management processes. So I will not go through what are the requirements of a good exporter or a importer. What are the requirements? As I said, this particular presentation has a number of slides which may not be relevant to global logistics as such, which are relevant to international trade as a whole. But I'm open if somebody wants to learn and wants me to share. With the permission of FTCCI, we'll see if this can be shared. There is something which is very important that we can discuss over here, is triangular trade. Now what happens in triangular trade? Now you are a seller, okay, and you are a seller of a certain kind of a material, okay. Suppose mining equipments, okay, mining equipments. But India, you do not have manufacturers who make mining equipments. Now, but you can be a trader. So a buyer in USA require mining equipments to be bought. So they connect with you. And then what you do, there is a supplier in South Africa. So the actual movement happens between South Africa and USA. In this case, South Africa becomes the exporter and USA becomes the importer. But the payment is made by USA to India, and India subsequently makes the payment to South Africa. There is no connection. There is absolutely no connection between the South Africa and USA. Even the bill of lading, which is prepared, which will come in the next section of our documentation process, we'll understand what is bill of lading, etc. So triangular trade is very, very interesting part. Okay, it reduces the supply chain cost, because sitting at a particular place, just based, I have done triangular trade during my professional days, during my working days. I have been a part of many triangular trades. While sitting in India, I could connect an exporter to an importer, whereas I was the central point of contact between the buyer and the seller, without letting each of them connect with each other. So optimize the supply chain. So this is an example how a third country trade happens. SOLAS, safety of life at sea. This is a contract, okay, and this actually started, if you see the second point, it actually started after Titanic, after the disaster of Titanic. People realized that there is a need to safeguard the life of people at sea. So SOLAS means safety of life at sea. So there are 15 chapters. It's a kind of a document, a book, which has 15 chapters, and all these 15 chapters We are not going to discuss this all the 15 chapters over here, because we are just taking a macro view. But my presentation has all the 15 chapters. So it tells you basically about what should be the infrastructure available in a container, in a ship, what kind of facility a ship should have, whether it has the safety equipment, it has the lifeboats, whether it has the capacity of carrying heavy materials, whether with heavy materials. You remember the Titanic accident? Titanic happened because it was going at a far higher speed than what it was supposed to. So it could not maneuver, and it hit a glacier. So there are different types of on construction of the ship, the safety of the navigators, the radio communications, the technology, carriage of dangerous goods. So every country, every shipping company should ensure that when they involve themselves into global logistics, global trade, and movement of products and commodities between two countries, they should abide by the laws stated in the 15 chapters of SOLAS. Incoterm, just for your information, these are basically terms. Okay, these are international rules, and these are standard rules, certain standard rules which should be agreed upon between the buyer and the seller. It's not an easy transaction. It's not an export import is not easy in the sense that the documentation has to be extremely clear, specific, and have a lot of clarity. And these specifications laid in Incoterm should be there in the contract between the buyer and the seller. What are these Incoterms? What are the contracts? What are the provisions? Should not be a part of our discussion at this point. So this is how to choose the right Incoterm. We have some case studies. Okay, my presentation has some case studies about Apple, about Walmart. If you see over here, the kind of suppliers Apple has. The Singapore facility, Samsung, they manufacture the CPU and video. This Infineon manufacture base communication and hardware. Primax in Taiwan manufacture the digital camera. Foxconn in the Taiwan facility manufacture internal security, etc., etc. Again, Unicorn Technology in Taiwan, they manufacture the circuit boards. The Broadcom USA facility builds touch screen. So if you see the number of suppliers spread all over the world who are a part of this Apple supply chain. And in order to make this supply chain work with efficiency, this global logistics is the base behind this efficient supply chain. So we have a supply chain of Dr. Reddy's as well. What kind of, very briefly, and also Walmart. We will not discuss about packaging, transportation today because we have a separate session for that. Okay. We have to understand who's a freight forwarder and who's a shipping line. Simply, freight forwarder is a company or a group of people who connects the buyer with the shipping company. Okay. So, for example, it's almost like travel agents. So you do not book your ticket if you do not want to book your ticket directly with an airline. You have somebody in between. For example, Make My Trip, who is going to book on your behalf. So freight forwarder is almost an agency between the shipping line and the exporters. Okay, and these freight forwarders, enjoy certain benefits because they can consolidate, they can aggregate the demand, they can aggregate the booking from all the exporters, and they get some price discounts from the shipping line. Okay, and they connect the exporters with the shipping line. Some of the freight forwarders also take part in customs clearance. Not all freight forwarders do that, but some freight forwarders, most of them that I have worked with, they also facilitate customs clearance. So basically, but they don't take any responsibilities of your cargo, by the way. There is something called NVOCC globally, non-vessel operating carriage carrier, who take responsibility of the safety of your security, damage, pilferage of your cargo, but not freight forwarder. Freight forwarder will only book a space, will only book a container. Depending upon whether you have a full container or if you have a less than a container load, they will book it with the shipping line, and they will customs clear document your shipment. That's it, period. They will not do anything else. So that's the role of the freight forwarder. 3PL again, we are not going to discuss 3PL today. Will be discussed later. I will again take a few minutes to go back to my other, the last another slide on documentation. Just give me a few minutes. Just again repeat, can everybody see? Prasad, can you please tell me if it is visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So we go into our next subtopic for today. It is documentation. Is everything fine? I know we have a large portion to cover and probably I'm going a little fast, but definitely we will take some time out on day 2 or last day to actually recap and go back and see if there are some important areas to be covered. Is that okay with all of you? So introduction. So what is documentation? It is called the soul, our Atma, our life of global logistics. Without documentation, global logistics is zero, is inefficient, is incomplete. It is required at every stage of movement of a cargo. Every stage. It fulfills two purposes. One is commercial and one is regulatory. Commercial purpose between the buyer and the seller in terms of payment, in terms of ownership, etc. And some regulatory purposes in terms of rules and laws of a particular country. It states who's the owner of the good, how should the payment be made. Very sound knowledge is required in every company, particularly logistics company that I've worked with. They recruit customer service agents who are experts in making documentations, because any error in documentation is going to delay or misroute the shipment, and which could be a huge loss for the organizations. Huge loss. There are some guidelines set by the United Nations Center for Trade Facilitation. Then you have the human and animal health rights, some of the clauses, and it plays a vital role in executing Customs Act 1962. Let me tell you, without proper documentation, a cargo cannot either enter the Indian sea waters or go out of the Indian waters. So you can imagine any error. I have faced this few times in my life. And when your shipment is delayed or detained, there is huge penalty that comes from the customs as well as the shipping line. Huge penalty, because your papers are not correct. Your papers are not correct, your export cannot leave the country. If your papers are not correct, your import cannot be customs cleared and you cannot take delivery of the imports. Who are involved? The exporters, importers, banks, freight forwarders, everybody. Everybody who's involved in global movement of a particular good. Chamber of Commerce, Customs, etc. I told you about sequence. So it starts with buying a particular, okay, order or prepare. When you ship, you have to transport. When you talk of shipment, either you are transporting or you are customs clearing, and then you pay. So broadly, you buy, you ship, and you pay. So sorry, the formatting is a little, there's a little problem with the formatting. So these are the different stages where who are involved at the buying or the preparing stage, transport or fumigation. Fumigation, I think you all know what is fumigation. As when you disinfect a particular ship, okay, in white ants and or termites, etc. When you make a lid van, when there are wooden items, you need to fumigate. Then you ship, your customs also require, and then at the times of payment, who are the different people involved in this particular. These are the document types which are prepared by the carrier, by exporter, by importer, and trade facilitating agents. And what are the relevance of documents? What does document do? It's a strong database. Let me tell you, when you prepare strong documentation over a period of time, you realize from those documents which are, because when you are importing, first of all, think of imports, which brings money to you. Export brings foreign currency. You're selling a product, so it brings international currency. When you import, when you buy, you are sending, you're spending money, right? So you should not spend money on imports which is avoidable. So don't get any import which is not required by you. It avoids loss of currency. It gives you good information about the product or the commodity that you are importing or exporting. What is the quality and quantity error? It, as I said, it is the soul, it is the Atma, it is the life of logistics, it's global logistics. It ensures the most important, probably number 1, 2, 3, 4, smooth logistics process. It happens. You're driving, so just forget about global logistics. If you're driving on a road and a police catch you, when you have your documents ready, what happens? You smoothly show the documents and you are free to go. What happens? Your documentations are not proper. You are held. You have to pay penalty, or your car is confiscated. You think of a larger scale in terms of export and import. What happens? Huge penalty. Then you can monitor the goods. You get the right insurance cover. We have seen in number of times when the documents are not proper, and if there is a damage, if there is a pilferage, there is a shortage, the insurance people will not pay you because your documents were not prepared properly. It's an acknowledgement the goods have been loaded. The contract of carriage, it serves as a document or the title of goods. The most important probably among all the documents is bill of lading. Bill of lading is particularly relevant to shipments which move by sea from one country to the other. Okay, so what is a bill of lading? Right, you send any shipment, you get a ticket, right? You're moving from one place to the other by air, you get a ticket, you get a boarding pass. You send a shipment by courier, you get a receipt, right? So bill of lading, to make it simpler, it is not as simple as I'm saying. It is basically a proof of a receipt given by the shipping line to you as a proof that the shipment has been received by them and to be delivered to a certain party. So in an airway bill, when you go to Blue Dart, FedEx, DTDC, you all would have seen an airway bill, a bill. What it has? Sender, shipper, the consignee, the receiver. It has all the description of the goods. What is the total weight? What is the total number, etc., etc. So same with the bill of lading. So there are two types of bill of lading. One is negotiable, one is non-negotiable. What is negotiable? When you want the importer to pay before they get hold of the consignment, you have a negotiable bill of lading. You don't send the bill of lading, because once you get the hold of the bill of lading at the destination, you can release the load. You can release the shipment. But what happens when you have a negotiable bill of lading? You submit the bill of lading to the bank. So a shipment coming to me from Singapore worth 10 crores of rupees, Singapore exporter will submit the bill of lading to bank. To his bank in Singapore. Excuse me. His bank in Singapore will transfer the bill of lading to my bank, suppose HDFC has Standard Chartered, HSBC in Hyderabad. I have to go to the bank, I have to pay 10 crores. Bill of lading will be given to me. I will go to the bill of lading to the shipping line. Mera saman de do. They will give me, they will release my shipment. Simple. What is non-negotiable? Suppose you are doing business with a party for a long period of time. They have faith in you. They know that the money will not go anywhere. Tomorrow, day after, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, the payment will be made. So the bill of lading is directly given to the importer. The importer don't have to go to the bank. With the bill of lading, he will go to the shipping line. The shipping line will release the shipment. That is the simplest form. We do not have enough time to discuss this in detail. So basically, I have a few formats of standard. What is a standard bill of lading? There are different compartments, different areas. It is a little more complicated than a simple courier receipt, but broadly, it has all the information about the sender, about the receiver, the content, the description of the content, the weight, the port of discharge, the port of entry. Now, when a shipment comes to Hyderabad by sea from Singapore, the port of entry is Chennai. And where is the port of discharge? The port of discharge will be Inland Container Depot, Sanat Nagar, Hyderabad. It will enter from Chennai because Hyderabad does not have a sea. So it will enter into Chennai, and then from Chennai, it will not be customs cleared. The container will not be opened. It will come to Hyderabad by either train or by truck. Right? So Chennai or Mumbai or whatever it may be, Visakhapatnam becomes my port of entry, and Hyderabad becomes my port of discharge. As I said, what are the contents of a bill of lading? Instruction, purchase order, name, addresses, packaging type, etc., etc. There are several types of bill of lading: negotiable, non-negotiable, house of bill of lading. Broadly, two very important. Apart from negotiable and non-negotiable, I do not want to take you through all the bill of ladings. There are at least 10 to 15 of them. Few of them is a house bill of lading and a master bill of lading. Now, a shipping company, what a freight forwarder? What did I tell you? What a freight forwarder does? Freight forwarder will contact 10 exporters. It will take orders from all the 10 exporters and it will go to the shipping line. All the shipments are going from Hyderabad to Singapore. So he will buy the container or space from the shipping line. He will get one master BL. Master, one main BL from the shipping line will be given to the freight forwarder. The freight forwarder in turn will issue a house BL to all the separate 10 exporters, rather than the shipping line giving 10 BLs to, because the shipping line is not connected directly to the exporter but through the freight forwarder. These are the most important, like bill of lading, negotiable, non-negotiable, master BL, and house BL. So there is inland mode of bidding. There is a clean bill of lading. There is, there is. Now, when you hand over a shipment to a shipping line, who is issuing the bill of lading? The captain of the ship. Now, what happens when you book a shipment through a courier or an express cargo, and if they have doubt, they will say that material may be damaged. So if the shipping line or the captain, they feel the contents are not verified, if he has any doubt, he will not issue a clean bill of lading. It will be subject to a clause that the shipment may be damaged, because he will not open the shipment. He will not open the shipment. It's already in customs cleared, it's being packed, etc. It is not possible to open the shipment. So he will issue a bill of lading, which will have a clause that when the car, so it is mentioned somewhere over here. You see clean bill of lading for consignment with no damage on package. Just the reverse. And what is an unclean? If the owner of the ship or his agent does not agree with one or more statement mentioned in the bill. I have already told you about master BL and house BL, negotiable and non-negotiable. Now, when we talk of export and import, we are primarily in India talking of shipping, vessel, ocean, and air. There are other modes of transport, which we are going to discuss the next day. What are the other modes of transport? By road. Now, export and import in India doesn't happen by road because we are not a landlocked country. The neighbors which are accessible by road are Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, etc. Apart from that, everywhere you have to move either by ocean or by air. Right? So for ocean, we have just discussed bill of lading, and for air, you have airway, which is the simplest form of a document, a simple form of document. This is an airway of one of the express and cargo companies. The fundamentals remain the same. For fundamental remains the same, you have a barcode, which is used to track and record the shipment in your system. Otherwise, all informations are the same: the shipper, the consignee, the receiver, the contents, the weight, the number of pieces, the condition in which is the region, the origin, the destination. Everything is mentioned over here. Here the origin in this airway bill, sample is London and destination is Indonesia. Number of pieces is 1 trunk box, gross weight 15.025 kgs, etc., etc., etc. Seal and stamp, services, what is required, these are diplomat documents required. So basically, companies, yeah, the format changes a little bit from different service providers, otherwise the fundamental requirements are the same. Will not discuss pro forma and commercial invoice. So what are the information conveyed in airway bill? Name and address, as I said, nature of quantity of goods, place and date of loading. Just to go back on commercial and pro forma invoice, basically when you sell a product, the seller gives an estimate to the buyer that this may cost you this much, approximately. It's an approximation. So be ready. I believe it would be about 5 crores of rupees, for example, a pro forma invoice. A commercial invoice is of course the final invoice where you have the specific, because when you actually ship the product, before you ship the product, you do not know the dimension, the weight and the quantity, etc., etc. So the commercial invoice will give you the exact specification with the exact value that the buyer has to pay to the seller. So this is probably the difference between a commercial and a pro forma invoice. So this is what I have already told you, what is there in an airway bill, what are the information in an airway bill. This is too technical. Every airway bill has a 11-digit number. What the first digit number actually tells you the airline. 1, 2, 3 is Indigo, 5, 6, 7 is Cathay Pacific, Vistara is 923, etc. etc. So every airway bill will have this airline. The second 7 digits will tell you about the serial number of that particular consignment. And as I said, this is a little too technical. The last digit is 11 digit. You have the 7 digit divided by 7 and the remainder is the. So this is technical, we did not need, but just to understand that the formation of this airway bill is just not random. It is not random. It follows a certain rules. It follows a certain structure. I do not know how many of you have heard of free trade agreement. So there are certain documentation relaxation in free trade agreement. When two countries decide to work and reduce the complexities of import and export between the two countries. For example, India has entered into a free trade agreement with Germany, right? So India says that I am going to export jewelries and gems and cement to Germany, and you should not impose import duty on them. So India says I will identify 5 products, 5 commodities where Germany is not going to import duty. Germany in turn says, okay, India is a huge market. I'm going to export vehicle components, car components, telecom products, okay, textiles, and just arbitrarily I'm telling you, to India, and India should not impose import duty. So they agree between two of them, free trade agreement, no import duty on certain products. It encourages exporter in those respective countries to export and sell products to the other countries. Earlier, what was happening, because of high duty, these exporters were discouraged. They were not exporting the goods, and in the process, they were not getting access to international clientele. A lot of Asian countries have signed, the SAARC countries and other countries, they have signed free trade agreement. So the documentation becomes very easy. Again, it becomes a little too. GSP and APTA certificate are the two certificates, documents which are required in terms of when you talk of free trade agreement. This basically has to be produced in order to ascertain that yes, as per the free trade agreement, these particular commodities which you are exporting will not attract any import duty. On production of these documents, you will be exempted for any import duty at destination. So again, a bit technical, but basically free trade agreement is a process by which various countries enter an agreement with each other to ease or to make trade easier between these countries. With this, I end today's session. It's 3:45 now. I said I'm going to end at 3:30, but it was not possible. Next day, I'll try to give you some more time. I will go back to this original screen, okay? And I'll leave the session open for the next 15 minutes. If anybody wants to have a question, just give me 1 minute time to go back to the screen. Hello, everybody. Can you all see me and hear me? Hello.
Yes, sir. We can see you and hear yours.
Could you properly see the slides and listen to me during the entire presentation of the two topics of introduction and documentation? Okay. Okay, good. Any questions, please? Did you all enjoy the presentation, by the way? I know it was a little fast. I had to be a little fast because we had to cover a lot of areas and topics, okay? But Mr. Prasad, how to make the session open to everybody? If anybody has any questions to...
Actually, nobody is not responding, sir. If they have any queries, they have to raise the hand now.
I see some responses coming. I'm very pleased to see that somebody is saying it was a good presentation. They have enjoyed the presentation. How many participants were there, by the way, Mr. Prasad, altogether? 44? Sorry?
30 numbers.
I can see 44 from here. In participants, there is 40. Oh, sorry. That is chat. I'm sorry. Okay, 30 members, right?
Yeah, just a second, sir. One person is some query. Just I'm going to allow now.
Yeah.
Mr. J.S. Murthy, you can speak now.
Yes, sir. Can we have these presentations to my email ID?
Well, I have to check with organizers, with FTCCI, and I will share the presentation with them for sure. And Mr. Prasad, you can discuss internally and see if this presentation can be shared with the participants.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I'll share it with FTCCI for sure. Okay, and then they will decide how to distribute them or whatever. Okay.
And this is only about presentations, or any chance to get a recording also, video recording?
I think Mr. Prasad has already recorded, right?
Yeah, because I am able to see on my screen it is recording. If it is,
Yes,
if the recording also recorded, it will be very great, sir.
Mr. Prasad has to answer this.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Along with this, can you share this recording, video recording also?
Yeah, we can share, sir. We can place in the group after completion of the meeting.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
What I would suggest, Mr. Prasad,
yes, sir.
After completion of all the 3 sessions, probably you can share the recording, maybe.
Right.
I'm not sure. You can take a decision, discuss with Mr. Kulkarni, and then decide.
And one person, Mr. Anjan Kumar, also is available now. Hello,
yes,
Mr. Anjan Kumar, you can speak.
Sir, you have discussed regarding triangular trade, sir.
Yes.
Sir, the triangular trade is also called as a drop shipment, sir?
Not really. drop
Then
shipment.
what is the difference between
No,
drop shipment and
no,
triangular trade?
quite close. You are quite close. Okay.
Okay.
See, in a triangular trade, the most important factor is, see, I am dealing with my client in US, right? US
Yeah.
person is my client.
Okay.
Now, what happens in business, in logistics? We have spoken about risk management, right? We are
Yes.
talking
Yes.
of external risk management. There is one kind of risk management where you can lose business also. Now,
Okay.
suppose the supplier who's supplying from South Africa, tomorrow they can bypass you and they can get hold of this uh, uh, importer, right?
Okay.
So in this case, the entire control in triangular trade will be with me. So I do not want to release that control, because as per the agreement, because tomorrow what is going to happen if this exporter in South Africa, I give an example of India, South Africa and US, correct?
Yes. Yes. Exactly, sir. I do remember.
South Africa is the exporter and USA is the importer. If South
Yes.
Africa, by chance, South Africa will not prepare any bill of lading.
Okay.
He will prepare a bill of lading and will send it to me in India. I'm going to modify the bill of lading and send it to US.
But
I
when
do
we
not
are
want.
but when we are sending the cargo,
Yeah.
the documents will be attached along with the cargo, right?
Yes, there is a provision where I will not share this information of the supplier with the for the importer. I am the exporter as far India is concerned. From India is concerned. Okay. See, today in the world of information, it is very difficult to do this. It is very difficult.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I completely agree with you. In this world of technology and information system, it is very difficult to kind of
We cannot hide the seller details.
absolutely correct. It's difficult, but I just wanted to share with you, because in case this is something which I have done myself. For example, there was a buyer in South Africa. Okay, mining industry is very famous in South Africa because they have a lot of natural resources. Correct.
Yes. Yes, yes,
Not South,
exactly.
not South Africa. I'm so sorry. It was not South Africa. I think it
In
was
America.
no, not America. America is very sophisticated. I'm talking of Africa. So they have a lot of natural resources, and mining industry is very popular in Africa. Okay. Now the problem is that they do not have the adequate mining equipments. Without mining equipments, how can you explore? How can you mine? So
Okay.
China is a huge market for mining equipment supplier. So I had to I had to get hold of an exporter in China, correct? And
Okay.
he sent a shipment. He sent a shipment of mining equipment to the buyer in Africa. I think it was Nigeria or Tanzania, I forgot. Okay. But my fear was very simple. If tomorrow this particular importer in Africa comes to know about this exporter in China, tomorrow he will not give me any business.
Yes.
He will straight away contact this exporter in China and he will bargain. And probably this Chinese guy is going to, will be willing to give him, supply the material at a discount.
Lesser price.
Yes, discount. So you are absolutely correct. This is I have deliberately not discussed because this particular session does not allow me to get extended or speak in details.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Otherwise, we can. Somebody is asking me. I think Mr. Kulkarni is asking me to suggest any textbook global logistics. Yes, I will. I'll send it across. Let me explore. There are a number of them. Okay. 2 or 3 I'll suggest and send it to Mr. Kulkarni. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your participation. If you do not have any further question, we can. Mr. Prasad, can you check if somebody else has any question?
Nobody is there now. You can close the session. Thank you.
Okay, from your side, you can end the meeting then.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Sure, sir.